I'd been away for just 5 days, filming a rare documentary in the Florida Keys, the kind of gig that makes you feel alive with salt air and sunsets. When I pulled back into my quiet riverside property in Oregon, expecting the familiar whisper of pines and the untouched stretch of land I'd worked a decade to own, my heart stopped. My land wasn't mine anymore. Someone had turned it into a pastel-colored nightmare, a fully built HOA village of 103 tiny houses, complete with a metal gate, community rules, and a newsletter with my name listed as a pending resident. Families were grilling burgers. Lawn chairs cluttered the dock I'd hammered together myself. A woman in a crisp blazer locked eyes with me and said, with the calm of a predator, that I had 30 days to comply or get out. That's when I knew this wasn't a mix-up. It was a calculated heist. Could this happen to you? Stick around, because this story gets wilder. My name's Ethan, 37, and I run a small documentary studio. This riverfront lot in Willow Creek, Oregon, was my dream, a place to build a modest cabin to unwind after grueling shoots in places like Guatemala or Norway. I'd just wrapped a 2-week project on rural politics in Montana, which felt like a breeze compared to what waited at home. Imagine pulling into your driveway, expecting a few overgrown weeds, maybe a stray branch. Instead, I was staring at a shrunken suburb sprawled across my land. 103 tiny houses, painted in shades of lavender, mint, and baby blue, gleamed under the dusk sky. A polished HOA sign stood by my old oak tree, flanked by blinking security cameras. Each house had a miniature mailbox, picket fences sturdy enough to lean on, and street lamps glowing like they'd been wired by professionals. There was even a tiny library with a painted sign and a dog park with a fire hydrant prop. It was perfect in the creepiest way, like a theme park built to mock your sanity. What hit me hardest wasn't the absurdity, it was the precision. These weren't cheap props. The sidewalks were poured concrete, not painted wood. The street lamps hummed with real electricity, probably requiring permits. Metal signs, bolted into my soil, followed some bizarre traffic code for a doll-sized town. This wasn't a prank. It was a military-grade operation. I should have suspected something deeper, but I was too stunned, wondering if the stress of my job had finally cracked me. Stepping closer, I saw signs nailed to trees around my property, official looking, with that government font that screams legitimacy. Private property, no trespassing. But they weren't protecting my land. They were shielding this fake village from me, the owner. My stomach churned. It felt like someone had redecorated my house, then banned me from touching anything. The cameras, angled toward my cabin, not outward, were the final straw. Blinking red lights, weatherproof casings, they looked real enough to intimidate, though I suspected they were props. Someone had built a surveillance system to watch me on my own land. I could have called the cops right then, but I'm the type who tries talking first. Maybe there was an explanation. Then I saw the placard near the village's town square, driven deep into my dirt. Riverfront Renewal Project, sponsored by Willow Grove HOA. Project Manager, Karen Whitaker. Style, Coastal Serenity. Coastal? In Oregon. The audacity was almost funny. But those cameras, those signs, they screamed strategy, not stupidity. Someone had planned this for months, maybe years. I heard gravel crunch behind me. Turning, I faced a woman in her late 50s, her smile so polished it could have sold timeshares. Karen didn't introduce herself. She pointed at my truck and said, "Move your vehicle by noon, or it's towed. You're blocking HOA access." Her tone was calm, like she was explaining gravity to a toddler. I stood there, speechless, as a stranger issued orders on my own driveway while standing amid an illegal construction site. Karen's house was a shrine to neutral tones, beige walls, cream furniture, like color was a felony. She greeted me like an old friend, offering tea from a machine fancier than my camera gear. I declined, half afraid touching anything would set off an alarm. She sat, poised, wielding kindness like a blade. When I demanded answers, she tilted her head, feigning confusion. "Oh, Mr. Ethan," she said, never using my last name. "This is a community-approved project for the greater good. Progress doesn't pause for personal whims." She pulled out a folder prepared, of course with documents sporting official letterheads, signatures, and legal jargon. One signature gutted me. Tom, my neighbor, a retired teacher I'd shared beers with. His name on her papers felt like betrayal. "This land's under a communal use clause," she said, handing me a $100 check like it was a trophy. "Compensation for your cooperation." I stared at it, wondering if this was a prank show. I slid it back, demanding the houses be gone in 48 hours. Her smile tightened, just a flicker, and she said, "Legal battles are costly, Mr. Ethan. Sometimes, accepting change is wiser." Was that a threat? I couldn't tell, but it chilled me. The houses stayed put. Instead, I got a $600 fine for violating HOA landscaping rules on my own land. Worse, my name was scrawled on the notice in a handwriting I hadn't used since college. This wasn't random. It happened while I was in Florida, chasing waves, thinking I'd found peace. All it took was one trip from my land to become a pastel prison. The HOA meeting was a circus, held in a community center reeking of burnt coffee and smugness. Karen ran it like a dictator, framing me as the villain disrupting neighborhood harmony. She waved a petition with signatures from people I'd never met, demanding my fines increase to $1,800. When I asked to see it, she smiled and said, "HOA records are confidential." A man read a scripted plea for community preservation, glancing at Karen like she held his leash. My mic cut out when I tried to respond. The message was clear. They had voices, I didn't. Tom caught me in the parking lot, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "That wasn't my signature," he said, unprompted. "I never signed anything for that madness." Relief hit me, but his next words sank my heart. He told me about a couple on Elm Street, driven out last year over a shed dispute that spiraled into fines and mortgage issues. They vanished, just like I might if I didn't fight. Karen wasn't just stealing my land, she was building an empire, one lot at a time. I needed a lawyer. Claire's office was chaos, books stacked like Jenga towers, papers everywhere. But her focus was surgical. Within minutes, she saw through Karen's game. Not just a land grab, but a financial scam using legal loopholes. She found Karen's online newsletter, crowing about a tiny village expansion and soliciting $12,000 in donations for my land. "This is fraud," Claire said. "She's crowdfunding theft." Her plan was bold. Crash Karen's summer festival, legally record her admissions, and turn her own rules against her. The festival was a sugar-coated dystopia cotton candy, food trucks, a bounce house teetering on my dock. Karen held court on a stage, basking in applause. I mingled, recorder in pocket, while Claire posed as a journalist. Karen announced, "Thanks to your donations, we've expanded to the riverfront, enhancing our community's joy." My recorder caught every word, her confession of using stolen funds on private land. Then Paul, Karen's husband, gripped my shoulder, flashing a video of me checking the village at night, edited to make me look like a criminal. "Trouble follows troublemakers," he hissed. "Trespassing's a serious charge." My blood ran cold. They'd been watching me, too. A woman by the lemonade stand whispered, "Don't talk to clipboards," then scurried off, her smile too wide. The control was suffocating. Claire called it perfect. Paul's threat made it criminal, not just civil. We spent 2 weeks building a legal arsenal, contacting the State Fraud Unit, IRS, and county recorder. Claire proved my ownership predated the HOA by 20 years, digging through dusty land grants. Karen's claim that my land was communal crumbled. Under state law, her ignored removal notices meant the houses were mine. Claire's genius move? I registered the village as an art piece, Echoes of Control, valued at $30,000. Karen's weapon became my victory. We sent our evidence to the press and authorities, then staked a sign by House 12. Art installation, property of Ethan Walsh. Karen laughed at the notice, vowing to sue for theft. She didn't know we'd already flipped her game. At her crisis HOA meeting, packed with reporters Claire had tipped off, Karen called me a rogue. I stood, folder in hand, and explained how her refusal to remove the houses made them mine, how her fundraising was fraud. The room went silent. Her tantrum screaming about stolen community assets was caught on camera. Paul lunged at a reporter, only to be cuffed by cops waiting with a warrant. Tom shouted, "That's not my signature." Neighbors spilled years of abuse. Fake fines, forged documents, families bankrupted. The HOA board ousted Karen, naming Tom interim leader. A kid tugged her sleeve, asking, "Are you in trouble?" Karen dropped her badge and left, silent, as neighbors stared. Karen and Paul faced charges: fraud, intimidation, tax evasion. The houses were removed, my land restored. I built my cabin, staring at the river's calm. My auction raised $30,000 for an HOA abuse defense fund. Karen's legacy? A warning: power crumbles under scrutiny. I drive by sometimes, checking it's real. Paperwork, patience, and truth won. Could you fight a takeover like this? Would you cave to threats or expose them? What's your line in the sand? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, and subscribe for more stories that'll make you question everything.